Hi, this is John Rosenhead, Jerusalem psychotherapist. This week's Torah and Psychology post, Behar-Bechukotai, is going to discuss the topic of altruism. So we read about the mitzvah of Shemittah. And Shemittah, we know, is the commandment that's given to the Bnei Israel to not work the land. The owners of the land need to forfeit it, and it becomes hefker. And in a way, they're giving up their ownership, and they're allowing their produce, and they're allowing the land to be open to other people, to give it to other people. And this is one of the reasons suggested by the Sefer HaChinuch for the mitzvah of Shemittah, that it instills within Bnei Israel this idea that generosity does not have to be dependent on or tied in with the hope of receiving something back. That within a relationship, within an act of kindness, it doesn't have to always be reciprocated. And this is the wording of the Sefer HaChinuch, is that a person doesn't have to always hold on to this hope or aspiration that they're going to get something back, that you can give to somebody else without getting back. And this is relating to the idea of altruism. And this is what the mitzvah of Shemittah does. We have this mitzvah, and we're told every 7 years that we have to stop. We have to give up, and it's lahafgir, that the person is mafgir their property. And we could say that it's an extreme act of generosity. Who would have thought? I mean, Shemittah in itself is hard to understand if it isn't based on emunah, which is another reason that the Sefer HaChinuch brings for the mitzvah of Shemittah. This belief and understanding that because HaKadosh Baruch Hu commanded, therefore we should do it, and we should be confident and reassured that everything will be okay. It's against logic, and in a sense, being engaged in some sort of relationship and an interaction and giving to other people without holding on to and hoping that you'll get something back is also a little bit hard to accept, because in general, most people, and it's not because they're selfish, but it's a natural tendency to expect or hope that by doing something for somebody else, you'll get something back. But we have from this mitzvah of Shemittah, this idea of altruism, is saying this is what it means to actually give because this is what you want to do, because this is what you need to do. And it's not because you're expecting to get anything back in return. And we know we read in a number of different places in the Gemara, it says this idea of mitzvahs lav lahanis nisnu, that mitzvahs are not given to benefit from them. This is an idea, a halachic idea, but also a psychological idea, that if we have a mitzvah and HaKadosh Baruch Hu is commanding us to do it, it doesn't matter whether we understand the reason or we don't understand the reason. We have chukim and mishpatim, but at the very core of the idea of mitzvahs lav lahanis nisnu, that a mitzvah is not in order to get something out of it, but rather it's because it is the commandment of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which needs to be fulfilled. So ingrained into mitzvahs, and especially it's evident with the mitzvah of Shemittah, is the idea of doing it because that's what we need to do, that's what we are told to do, not because we are actually looking to gain or to have some personal benefit from this act. But there is a view in psychology and the literature on altruism that perhaps takes this view and says to hold or to have this idea that a person can do an act of kindness and generosity and help another person without getting anything out of it. It's argued that maybe that's radical altruism, that really there's nothing, that it's not based on reality, that there's always something that the person gets out of it. There's always some benefit, even if it's not tangible, perhaps it's more emotional or psychological. But the idea is that there's always something that you get out of it, so that maybe there isn't really any real in reality. There's no true altruism. And perhaps if we look at this mitzvah of Shemittah, there is an idea that even if it's the commandment, and even though the idea of the Sefer HaChinuch is that it's trying to instill within us the idea of altruism, perhaps there is, we could say, some benefit that we get out of it, because if we're engaged in relationships and interactions, and we're always, in a way, subconsciously perhaps, believing or hoping that there's something that we're going to get out of this, we're looking at the next step. If I do this for a person, what am I going to get out of it? Looking for the next step in the future. It's always actively engaged and focused on what is the purpose and what is the self-gain, or what is the next step of development that's going to come out of this interaction. But by saying that you can actually be engaged and perform an act of kindness and help another person without thinking about the next step, without thinking, what am I going to get out of it? It's actually quite, in a way, it's entering into a more passive state, a more relaxing state. That is, in a way, there's a bit of freedom here, that we can just be. In a way, it's related to the idea of mindfulness. We can just be engaged in the here and now, in the present moment, that I'm helping another person, that this is Shemittah now, and we can't work the land, and we can't be busy, and I'm just going to let it go, that it's now belongs and it's there for other people. In a sense, there is a personal gain out of this. There's an emotional, psychological benefit that comes out of the idea of mindfulness as well, of just being engaged and connected with yourself, taking notice without having to be actively involved in this, and engaged and focused on things, because that can be tiring. It can be draining. So therefore, we could say there is actually, just at least on a psychological level, a personal gain that we get out of the mitzvah of Shemittah. This total state of Shemittah is just letting go, being relaxed, being focused on the here and now. So there's different elements of this mitzvah of Shemittah. And a certain level of altruism, perhaps, is true altruism of helping without focusing on what you're going to get out of it. But there is also this element that there is a personal gain. Have a good Shabbos and keep well.